over. So my name is Nicole Munoz-Prue. I am the volunteer coordinator with San Diego 350. You are attending the July monthly membership meeting, which is going to be all about building electrification, how to electrify your home and decrease your carbon footprint. And we're also going to be talking about accessible and equitable transportation here in San Diego. So we've got some wonderful folks on the call today. I want to just share some community rules with everyone. So just to be polite and respect our presenters who have put a lot of work in tonight's event, please stay muted. If you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. We do have a chat monitor who's going to be helping us relay those questions to our wonderful speakers. If you're interested, we do encourage folks to rename themselves and include their pronouns if you're comfortable. So for instance, you'll see my name is Nicole, I have SD350 nearby, and then next to that, my pronouns are she, her, Aya. So that's a little intro to renaming yourself. Sophia, I think, is going to put the agenda in the chat for folks to reference as the event goes on, but I'll review them verbally for you. So we have our introduction, which we're doing right now. Then for about 45 minutes to an hour, we have a fantastic presentation by Robert and Jeannie and maybe some few other folks from the San Diego Building Electrification Coalition, which is a group of many engaged organizations working on this work in San Diego. And then we're going to transition to talk about the regional transportation plan. We will hear from Susan, who is the co-leader of the JEDI team, and that stands for Justice, Equity, Diversity, Inclusion. We will spotlight our wonderful member of the month, our volunteer of the month, which is Stephen, and potentially hear from him if he's comfortable sharing. And then I'll end by sharing some Pride resources since July is celebrated as Pride Month in San Diego. So without further ado, I'm going to do a quick land acknowledgement. And oh, I just saw Susan shared that Maria, who is also a co-leader of the JEDI team, will be here for the announcement. So thank you for that, Susan. All right, so really quickly, it's important for us, especially the folks in San Diego County, that we acknowledge where we're zooming in from. We, in this case, are zooming in on Kumeyaay land. And these are people whose traditional lifeways intertwine with a worldview of earth and sky and a community of living beings. This land is part of a relationship that has nourished, healed, protected, and embraced the Kumeyaay people to the present day. It is part of a worldview founded in the harmony of the cycles of the sky and balance in the forces of life. So it is very important for us to pay our respects for the past, present, and future generations of the Kumeyaay people. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Robert, and we're going to start the first part of our presentation.
Hey, thank you, Nicole. Let me go ahead and get this started. All right, so everyone should be seeing the screen now. That looks good? Okay, great. Well, thank you for having us and good evening. Today, we're going to talk about building electrification and why it's so important to eliminate natural gas from the buildings we live and work in. So Nicole already went through this. So like she said, any questions you may have, please put those in the chat and we'll get those answered as best we can. So today's agenda, after we talk real quick, about the agenda, we'll have a breakout where your folks can introduce yourselves and kind of talk about what you already know about building electrification. And then I'm going to go high level into what building electrification is and why we need it, things that are going on here in San Diego, California, as far as legislation to start electrifying our buildings. Then we'll get into kind of the technologies you can bring into your own home or building or business that'll help you electrify your building. And then Jeannie's going to wrap it up with talking about the SDBEC, what we do and kind of ways you can volunteer and so forth. And then we'll end it with the Q&A. So real quick, my name is Robert Carr. I'm actually an SD350 member. I'm also the co-chair of the SDBEC Messaging Working Group. And Jeannie Brown is a member of SD350 as well, League of Women Voters, and she is a member of the working group. So what we're going to do in the breakout is it's kind of like an icebreaker, an introduction. So please, we have 5 minutes. There should be about 4 or 5 people in each group, so there should be plenty of time to kind of talk through these questions. So introduce yourself, talk about how you're involved with SD350, because maybe not everyone knows. And maybe you already know something about building electrification. And so kind of share that with you, and then what you hope to learn about building electrification. And by the way, I'll be interchanging building electrification with BE as we go. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing. And Max, it sounds like you're gonna go ahead and get those breakout groups going.
Yep, I'm gonna set that up right now. We're gonna do 9 rooms. 8. All right, here we go. All right, if anyone's left with me, it means you haven't joined your group yet. So if you need, you want me to move you or something, I can do that. So Wanda and initials MEB, if you guys want to join the rooms, you can, otherwise you can hang out here.
Hey, Max.
Yeah, your room was a little short, huh?
Yeah, no, but did we set a time on the rooms?
I did 5 minutes.
Okay, so you just manually broke this out. Okay, all right. Cool.
Yeah. Yeah, your room was a little short because a couple people didn't. It looks like you may have to like opt to join or something, and so a couple people didn't. And I saw that, yeah, your room. So I switched one person over to your room, but there were a couple people who didn't join.
That is all right. Okay, so where is the presentation I had? Oh, all right. My presentation just went away. I must have closed it. All right, I can get it back. Give me 1 second.
I saw it shared for a second.
Yeah, it just the actual presentation isn't there. There it is. Easy peasy. Okay. And then I'm going to present. All right. Here we go. Unfortunately, it goes there. So, all right. So, welcome back, everyone. So, Nicole, can you see it?
I am not looking at the presentation
Okay,
right now.
there we go. Sorry. I'll get better at this as we do this several times.
Great, I can see it now.
Okay, awesome. Is everyone back? Get ready to go?
Yeah, we got 41 people in the room.
All right, perfect. All right, well, welcome back. Hopefully you all met some people you haven't met before and kind of talked about some maybe what you might already know about building electrification. Like I said, we call it BE for short. And the concept is actually pretty simple. It basically involves installing all electric appliances and heating systems in buildings in place of those that use natural gas. So in most buildings, water heaters use gas, space heating, they use gas, and usually cooking, so gas cooktops and so forth. So, and maybe your washer or dryer. So it's basically taking any of those that use natural gas and replacing them with electric appliances. Let me see here. Okay. All right, so why is it so important? Well, obviously there's huge climate benefits to electrifying your buildings, especially when it's paired with solar, and we'll kind of go into that a little bit later, to really reduce the emissions that come from associated with buildings. Also, burning fossil fuels inside buildings has some pretty adverse health effects, which we'll go into. And by eliminating gas in buildings, those go away. You know, the efficiency of these heat pump systems and these cooktops are so great that there's such a huge cost savings when operating buildings that are all electric, and also construction will go into that as well. And again, the efficiency, we'll talk about why these efficiencies are so incredible with this new technologies there. And also, there's some public safety issues with, you know, basically storing, transporting, delivering natural gas to buildings here in the United States and everywhere else for that. So in order for us to meet the local and state climate goals, there's no way we can reach those, you know, those targets unless we electrify our buildings, because it's, as we'll see, that's a huge chunk of the emissions do come from buildings. And the good thing about it is that since 2008, our emissions have been slowly either, you know, kind of slowing going down. But as you can see, the line in green and the one dotted line, in order for us to meet these new targets of, you know, basically being carbon neutral by 2045, or 40% reduction in GHGs, we have to go so much faster. We have to really kind of take these huge chunks of emissions and get rid of them. And so that's why we need to be thinking about how the built environment, the buildings we live in, how they can contribute to meeting these targets. So the image you have here, so on the left-hand side is a pie graph of all the emissions in California by sector. Now, clearly transportation is the lion's share. Probably people knew that. But coming in second is buildings, all right? And a good chunk of that, those emissions associated with buildings come from burning natural gas in buildings, all right? For space heating, like I said, water heating and cooking, all right? So if you take all those emissions associated with natural gas, that's 10% of the total emissions in California are due to natural gas use in buildings, right? So if we could electrify our buildings, that potentially would say that could take 10% of our emissions just right off the bat. Obviously, it's not as simple as that, but that's why we're going for it, right? Here is a slide of emissions in San Diego, all right? And so if you see here, the orange bars that are on the bottom represent the amount of emissions associated with natural gas use. And so we tend to use a bit more natural gas here in San Diego than the state, because the state in general was 10%. So we have as high as sometimes 25% or 23%, sorry. So San Diego has to do its share of basically reducing its reliance on natural gas in buildings for space heating and water heating and so forth. So why is it better for San Diego? So I'm not sure if you knew this, but there's been 2 community choice aggregation that has launched. So San Diego Community Power and the Clean Energy Alliance have both recently launched in San Diego. And so their whole goal is to provide as much renewable energy at competitive prices compared to SDG&E. So if you're in San Diego, I know specifically for San Diego Community Power, almost everyone will be transitioned over to them, to that power by April of 2022. And then for the Clean Energy Alliance, I'm not sure exactly when that's going to happen, but they're slowly transitioning businesses and so forth over. So initially, there's the supply of energy is about 50% from renewables, which is better than the actual state average, as we know. And then you can also opt in for 100% renewable, I think for a premium price. And the goal is to have 100% renewable power by 2035 or sooner. So so every year there's going to be more and more renewables in the portfolio. So the emissions associated with electricity we use will go down, because they come from renewable sources. And also it's a really big deal because a lot of climate action plans are targeting reducing emissions from buildings. And so having clean power provided to them is a really big deal. So I'm going to transition into the health risk associated with combustion of natural gas in our homes or in our buildings, all right? And that's usually because we cook with gas stoves, and if not properly vented, the nitrous oxides, the carbon monoxides, the particulate matter, and formaldehydes that's formed when you burn natural gas tend to stay in the building, and over time, those can cause some serious health risks, stroke, increased blood pressure, cardiovascular disease, cancer, premature mortality, respiratory issues, irritation. So there's lots of things that can basically go wrong with our health if we are around, basically the toxins that are produced from natural gas. So the really sad part about it is that children living in homes with a gas stove have a 42% increase in experiencing asthma symptoms and 24% increase of actually being diagnosed with asthma. So if you do have a gas cooktop, please, please, please go ahead and use the exhaust vent above your stove, and hopefully there is one. If not, open up the windows. And we'll talk about kind of the new technologies that electric induction cooktops, which have basically the same controllability of gas, which everyone likes, but they don't have to burn anything. So not only are they better for our health, they're better for the climate, but they're also better for our pocketbook. Generally, electric buildings for new construction cost anywhere from $3,000 to $10,000 less per unit, because you don't have to build all that infrastructure to get the gas from the street, the main, into the buildings, through the walls, and to wherever it's needed, right? And then when you're operating your home, it's been found that you can save anywhere from $130 to $500 per year by using electric appliances, right? That's because they're so efficient. We get a lot of questions about, gas is a little bit cheaper than electricity right now, and that there is some truth to that, but the efficiency is so high that doesn't become an issue anymore. And then if you are pairing an all-electric building with solar, those savings totally deepen because you're getting a cheaper electricity from that solar system. So about the public safety concerns, all right, so in order to get natural gas to our buildings, they have to extract it, they have to process it, they have to ship it, they have to put it in pipelines and deliver it to homes, right? So a couple things about that. So if we live in earthquake country, so if there's a rupture in a gas line and there's an ignition source, you're going to have big fires, and they're finding that anywhere from 20 to 50% of post-earthquake fires are from that very situation. Basically gas main ruptures and then ignites. Electric homes build resilience to earthquake hazards. Like if you don't have a gas line to your house, you're not going to have that issue. Also, carbon monoxide is pretty gnarly from burning it in homes. If you don't vent it, it basically leads to about 15,000 emergency room visits and about 500 unintentional deaths in the United States each year. So again, there's many things about using natural gas in buildings that are just not so good. So some pictures to show it to you. So from left to right, the first two are examples of fires that ignite because of gas lines. You know, one on the left, it looks like there's actually water rushing into the street there, and it's still burning. I'm not sure if anybody remembers, so hopefully you do, about in 2015, a huge storage area in north of Los Angeles called Aliso Canyon just basically was leaking for you know, days, sending tons and tons of highly climate change, you know, strong greenhouse gas, the methane, into the atmosphere, and also the people around there really got sick from that methane kind of in their air and around there. So if we don't need natural gas, we don't have to store it, and it won't lead to things like this. So there's lots of momentum in California, you know, particularly in Northern California, for trying to inspire people to electrify your buildings. So there's been state assembly bills, you know, that are basically trying to promote adoption of BEE, building electrified buildings, whether it's through rebates or incentives. There's a lot of work trying to get the next cycle of building codes, Title 24, to include all electric building codes. So that's a bit of a battle right now. There's going to be some elements of building codes. We're just not quite sure exactly how far it'll go. There are over 45 cities that already have building breach codes for building electrification of some sort. And then there's utilities like Sacramento Municipality, SMUD, they call it, that are really going above and beyond to try to get their customers to get themselves off gas by offering incentive programs and so forth. So lots of momentum, and we're really trying to start to get that happening here in San Diego, in Southern California. So here's some list of some cities. Berkeley actually was one of the first people to do a ban on natural gas for new construction. And then there's been many cities that have come close. They basically ban it for most situations, but there may be a few exemptions here and there for life science buildings, or for, you know, for for-profit kitchens, restaurants, and the like, to keep their gas-powered stoves in those new buildings. So not all building codes are the same. They range from kind of, you know, basically how specific they are and how enforceable they are, and kind of, you know, so you have at the very top incentives. So you can have some, you know, some codes that say, okay, we're going to give people rebates and incentives and make the expedite permitting. So if they want to do it, it becomes easier. And then you have something called electric ready, which is, say, people that you build the new home, they'll be able to install all electric appliances because they have the panel they need, or electric preferred, or sometimes they say, okay, commercial buildings need to be all electric, but not residential or multifamily. You have electric only with exceptions, which that's kind of the most common one. And then, like Berkeley, you have an all electric, you know, basically ordinance saying that, you know, you cannot put fossil fuels in new construction. So it all depends on kind of what the area and the electeds and so forth are ready to do. So we're going to have a second breakout. This time, we're going to kind of get ourselves thinking about electrification in our homes and businesses or apartments that we live in. So what I want you to do is discuss ways you think you can electrify your home, right? Because we're going to talk about specific ways next, but I just kind of want us to start thinking about that. So hint, think of ways of things in your home or business that use natural gas. And those are the things you can concentrate on. So if there's not any questions, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing, and we'll get to that. Let's see here. Have I stopped sharing?
It looks like you're still sharing. Oh, okay, never mind.
If you're still here with me, it means that you haven't accepted your invite to join the room. So if you do want to join the room, you go ahead and do that. Otherwise, you can hang out for the next 5 minutes.
right. All right. Hello, everyone, again. Hopefully you had some good conversations. Let's see here. Can everyone see my screen? Thumbs up? Yeah, okay, awesome. All right, so the reason why we did that is to kind of get you thinking about just ways that you may already know to electrify your building, and then we're gonna kind of hopefully add to that knowledge and kind of really discuss how these technologies work and why they are so good, you know, and so efficient. So here we go. So what is an all-electric building? All right, so we talked about that basically all the appliances that are used for space heating or water heating or cooking are converted from gas to electric. So when it comes to conditioning your space, whether it's heating or cooling, usually it's some sort of central air where when you cool it, it uses refrigerant to take the heat inside your home and dump it outside, right? Well, heat pumps, and then those same systems to heat the space will have a separate heating element, gas, to heat the air and then distribute throughout the house. Now, the problem with that is that it's both electric and gas. The alternatives are these things called heat pumps or mini splits. There's different versions of it, some bigger than others. And the idea is that it uses the same technology, the same refrigerant to, when it cools the space, it basically takes the heat from inside and dumps it outside. But if it needs to heat the home, it'll reverse the flow of the refrigerant and take heat from the ambient air outside, even though it may seem cold, there is energy in that air, and bring that heat into your home. Right? So the only energy it's using is just to move the refrigerant from one side to the other and, you know, run the compressor and run the evaporator. And they end up being about 3 times more efficient than your most efficient space heating. Right? So, and again, this technology is mature. It's been all over Europe. You may have seen these in hotels. These are quite common in hotels, these mini splits, incredibly efficient and do a great job. So they allow you to heat your space without using natural gas. One of the big users of natural gas in buildings is hot water heaters. So mainly they're usually gas. The most efficient ones, essentially, you burn the gas. It takes the heat that you've got from that process and it transfers it to the water. And the most efficient ones are about 95 to 97% efficient, meaning that 97% of the energy released gets transferred to the water, which is pretty good, not too bad. It used to be like 75%, a lot of waste. But with heat pumps, again, there's no need to create the heat. It just takes the heat from somewhere else and transfers it to the water. So if it's in your garage, probably the air is not as cool as outside. It takes that heat and transfers it to the water. And that's all the energy you need to do. I mean, your need is just basically is to transfer that energy from one place to the other into the water. You don't need to create the heat in the first place. So again, that makes them 3 times more efficient than your most efficient gas water heater. So that's why it costs so much less to operate these than gas appliances. And we're not burning anything in our homes. So that's really great. One of the things that we were talking about in our breakout group was that a lot of people really like cooking with gas, because the old electric stoves were a bit cumbersome. I remember using them. I didn't like them. It was really hard to kind of do that really fun cooking, that finesse cooking with the coils you have. But now there's something called induction cooktops, and what they do is they actually use magnets to excite atoms, the iron atoms in your skillet, and that heat is directly transferred to your food. Right? It's not like when you make it with gas, you burn the gas, the heat kind of escapes around the pan, it heats the pan, then heats the food. So the heat transfer has to go through a couple of layers, but with induction cooktops, it goes, the pan is what actually gets hot and then cooks the food. And as far as one of the things like for cooking, as far as like the efficiency, induction cooktops boil water 2 times as fast as the most efficient gas cooktop. So that's really cool. And just a little shout out, the San Diego Green Building Council, they have a free loaner program for a cooktop that looks just like this and a pan, so you can test it out. So if you're not really sure that's what you want to do, the SDBEC, it's free. You just sign up, you get to use it for 3 weeks, and you really get to see basically how handy these things are, and the controllability. The things that most chefs like is the controllability, kind of reducing and increasing the heat ever so slightly. You can totally do that with this compared to the old electric cooktops that were, it seemed like it was either on or off, and there was no controllability. So if you wanted to buy one, I think these are about $70 at Amazon. There's one that has 2 or 3 burners or elements that's about 167. So it's super cheap if you want to do that. I plan to actually buy one and put it on top of my gas cooktop and use that instead. And then if you want to go for gusto, there are full ranges that are induction as well. The same concept for heat pumps also works for clothes drying. So if you happen to have a gas-powered clothes dryer, you can choose a heat pump one where it literally takes the heat from the ambient air around it or outside and brings it into your dryer to dry your clothes. All right. So again, these are all awesome. They're all mature. They're available. There's a little bit of like for heat pump water heaters, there's the installation of those is a little bit different than gas ones, but nothing that can't be overcome very simply with a knowledgeable contractor. And then it may not be quite obvious, but your car is part of your building, because how do you get to and from your home? And with EVs, the great thing about them is not only do they not have emissions, but they also can be a part of electrifying your home. You may not have heard of this term, but there's something called vehicle to grid, where there's times where mostly the electricity is going into the battery of the car to charge. But when needed, if say that the grid goes down, these cars are going to be able to charge or supply energy to your home and into your circuit from the car battery. And then if it goes even further, if the grid needs it, you actually are part of a demand response program, the grid can be supplied energy by EVs themselves. All right, so they're going to be a part of the grid integrated into your home. So not only will they get you to and from your home, but they also have the ability to be an energy storage backup as well, and resiliency. And then who doesn't like e-bikes? They're awesome. It's a much better way to get around. Even EVs are great, but you're using so much less energy just using an e-bike to get to and from, say, your favorite restaurant or store nearby. So another great way to electrify your home is through electrifying how you get to and from it. And then a big piece of this whole puzzle is, if say we electrify buildings, unless we're hooked up to sources of renewable energy, we're not going to really get those emission savings that we really want. So when you pair it with solar, not only are you getting good cost savings, because your solar basically is cheaper than the actual probably cost per kilowatt hour than you get from your public utility. It also guarantees you're getting basically emissions-free electricity. So if you have battery storage equipped with that, so I mean, the ideal thing is you have an all-electric home or building that has battery storage and gets power from renewable sources. So there's no emissions associated with operating the building. So you can heat water with no emissions. You can charge your car with no emissions. You can cook with no emissions. That's the ultimate goal. And so that's, but we first have to start by weaning ourselves off gas in buildings and replacing those with very efficient, high efficiency heat pumps and so forth, paired with solar in our homes. So last breakout, a call to action. Okay, so now that you've kind of had these conversations with your groups and you've kind of learned a little bit about electrification, I mean, hopefully we kind of added a little bit more to what what are the 1 or 2 actions you can do now to start going all electric? Now, there were some folks that were saying, hey, I live in an apartment. I don't really have that power. But maybe you can advocate for it with your family or your friends or even for your landlord. All right, what can you do to advocate for all electric buildings? So I'm going to go ahead and stop, and let's go ahead and do the breakouts.
incentives.
That, you know, was kind of the old bugaboo.
I think we're just waiting for more people to come back.
Yep, we're just waiting for the room to close down and everyone to rejoin. So
Okay.
they
So
have
Jeannie,
30
I'm
seconds
going
left.
to bring the slides up, and then I'll just introduce you, and then off we go.
All right.
Chrissy, say hi. Daddy. Good. Get up.
Okay, so welcome back, everyone. So hopefully, I know the room I was in, there was already lots of talk about what people can do, what they've already done. So that's super, super exciting. So I'm going to, without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Jeannie Brown, and she's going to talk about our organization and kind of what we do and resources we have and how you can be a part of it if you want to. All right, Jeannie, take it away.
All right. Yeah, so the San Diego Building Electrification Coalition, or SDBEC, was started by SD 350. So SD 350 had the idea of bringing in a number of people from a lot of different organizations to come together to form this coalition. We did this back in November. And as you'll see in the next slide, there's a number of organizations and community, labor, business, faith, justice, environmental. So people all from many, many walks of life are interested in this. And so the goal of this coalition is to reach out to cities in the region and advocate in favor of REACH codes. So those are modifications. So there are building codes. We want them to kind of amp them up to require all electric in new development, or as Robert was saying earlier, there are different layers of what could get, whether it's all electric or mostly electric, or give them rebates or whatever. But basically trying to get rid of new gas hookups. So we will start with new building, rather than trying to get people that are already settled to change. And what we are doing a lot of right now is meeting with the elected officials all over the county to change these REACH codes. Next. And so here are a number of the coalition members. So you can see Surfrider, Climate Action, the League of Women Voters, Stay Cool for Grandparents, and the Interfaith Coalition. So it's a wide variety of groups, and we're looking for more. So the more people, organizations in this coalition, the better. And each of these, we're trying to do a presentation, just as we're doing for San Diego 350 tonight. We want to do it to all of these groups and lots of other groups, including if any of you are in Kiwanis or Seroptimus or things like that, we would love to reach out and speak to you all. Next. So what do we do? So we provide educational presentations, as I was saying, to a lot of different groups, and we've got signups already, but we're looking for a lot more. And training programs for builders, for installers, and homeowners. So people who want to, in some of these breakout rooms, I've talked to people who are thinking about making changes in their home. And so you can come to the coalition and find out where do I find somebody who will help, put in a heat pump for my water heater, etc. And there's technical assistance. So there's a form that, in fact, Robert suggested this. My son would like to replace his old heater, but he needs insulation first. So there's a form that he can fill out, and it will help homeowners and building owners to retrofit their existing buildings, or if you're going to build something new, maybe you're going to remodel your home or that sort of thing. It can be very useful for that too. Next. And so the coalition is broken into a number of working groups. So one group is campaign strategy, that does what that says, focuses on what strategies we should use to meet our goals. Education and messaging, that's what Robert and I are involved in, outreach to the general public. And like I said, any organizations, your church, your synagogue, your Kiwanis Club, your PTA, etc. Research, that group, they are experts in finding information and providing analysis to support this. And if you're thinking of joining the coalition, think about which one of these groups you might want to be part of. Training and tech. We have people who have a lot of good background in helping and understanding how this technology and what is needed to implement this electrification. And then the steering committee, they're the ones that help coordinate us, so to keep all of us coordinated and doing what we need to do in the most efficient way possible. And next. So these are some of our resources. I hope you can be able to get this PowerPoint after this. I'm sure we'll be glad to share it with you. You can go on our website and get a lot of our information. The questionnaire that I mentioned is there. And then we have a social media group. Next. So our next meeting is August 12th at 4 o'clock via Zoom. If you contact one of these people, they will put you on the list and you'll get the invitation for Zoom. Attend, see what you think. If nothing interests you, or then maybe you just want to buy an inductive cooktop, change that. Next. So do you have any questions? We're open for questions now.
Thank you so much, Jeannie and Robert. That was an incredible presentation and such a thorough explanation of what we can expect in terms of trying to electrify our homes here in San Diego. We do have time for maybe one question. We have a pretty packed schedule, so I want to make sure we get to everyone. But if Robert and Jeannie, if you're willing to stay on a little past 8:30 potentially, if there are some lingering questions, maybe we can take some extra at the end of our other presenters. So I just wanted to share that. And it looks like we got a couple of questions that, let's see, Alyssa, I think if you're reading them, maybe we can share with Robert and Jeannie.
Yeah. Absolutely. Also, just want to mention that Kelly linked the cooktop free loaner. So if anyone is interested in that, check the chat. And so the first question is from Steve. Since electric building is cheaper, why is there an opposition to it?
Well, a lot of the opposition comes from the people that provide the gas in homes, and their business model depends on continuing that. So, I mean, it's, Sempra, a lot of their money comes from basically supplying natural gas and sourcing natural gas. And so they've been doing quite well with it. And really probably don't want to give up that source of revenue. And I think if they could find a way to completely replace it, they might be more excited about it. And also they're concerned about jobs as well. There's a lot of union workers who rely on these high paying jobs. And so we're really doing a lot of work with the unions to say, hey, we understand there's going to be some potential job shifting and job losses, but we really want to make sure that these people fall into are placed into new jobs that make just as much money that are in the renewable field. So it's definitely something that we're aware of and are working with them. So good question.
And also there's a lot of people don't know about some of these things about heat pumps and induction. And so they're afraid, how am I going to be able to do this? How am I going to be able to? So that's part of the reason why this coalition was created.
Yeah, really great question. So we've got another one here from Jennifer and Jerry. Changing regulations, take advantage now or wait? So since there's some regulation changes happening, is it better to wait?
Well, if the code cycle, which basically goes into effect 2022, if they would said, okay, we're doing all electric buildings for new construction, I think that would be great. There's a lot of people doing REACH codes now because they feel that it's not likely we're going to get that, and unfortunately it's going to be 2025 until those kind of rigid codes are going to be really in place. So that is entirely too long, and that's unfortunate, but it's just the way it is. So jurisdictions can individually go and say, you know what, we're gonna go and we're gonna reach further. We're gonna go further. That's why they're called REACH codes, and mandate that our buildings are all electric, or at least something close to it. So, I mean, I you know, if you can go and do something now, or I'd always, I mean, because the sooner we do this, the better. We can't wait 4 more years to really do this. That's for sure.
But individuals can make those changes without
Absolutely.
waiting for the building codes to change.
Absolutely, yes.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Robert and Jeannie. And again, folks, hold your questions, add them to the chat, because I think we'll try to get to some more of them at the end of our event. But because time is of the essence and we've got some amazing speakers to get to, we're going to pivot. And I would like to introduce you all to Savannah, who is our amazing fellow through the CPI nonprofit organization in San Diego. And Savannah has been working on transportation with our committee. So I'm going to pass it over to you, Savannah, to tell us more about the regional transportation plan and what we can do to, you know, play our part here in San Diego.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And I can, perfect. I will share my screen. Have you seen the presentation?
Yes.
Yes, cool. Okay, so hi everybody. My name is Savannah O'Toole. I am a fellow with the Students for Economic Justice through the Center on Policy Initiatives. I'm currently working with the Transportation Committee, and today I'll be going over what universal basic mobility is, what the regional plan is, and how you can get involved with transportation justice. So like they were showing earlier, they had a similar breakdown, right? But transportation makes up more than any other contributor to our greenhouse gas emissions. So transportation justice is important because, you know, if 53% of the city of San Diego's greenhouse gases are from transportation, then we can really have a chance to significantly reduce those emissions. So I will show you more. But transportation is also very important because it is an intersectional human rights issue. So in the past, regional plans have promoted a private car industry, right, over public transportation by prioritizing freeway development, which contributed to the rise of greenhouse gas emissions, environmental injustice, and structural immobility. And structural immobility just refers to the state in which lack of mobility limits a person's ability to obtain and keep jobs, access basic services, contribute to society, or maintain a reasonable quality of life. And universal basic mobility is a human right based on the idea that all humans have the right to access mobility. So the right to the freedom of movement actually precedes the US Constitution, and it is enshrined in our Declaration of Human Rights. It's more than a human right, it actually is the foundation of our healthy economy. So having a mobile and healthy population is very, very important for several reasons. So it's really monumental that SANDAG is prioritizing social equity in the plan for the first time. We have an opportunity to create lasting change and advocate for these ideas of universal basic mobility and to reduce structural immobility. And here, so you can take if you pull out your camera on your phone and you aim it at any of these QR codes that I'll have coming up, it'll allow you to go to like a link, right? So this link will take you to the regional plan website where you can get more information on the details of the regional plan. But as an overview, the regional plan merges 3 planning documents to create a 30-year strategy that is designed to address our greatest transportation and mobility challenges, including reducing traffic, improving safety, and making a more socially equitable region, and meeting state and federal mandates to reduce greenhouse gases and air pollutants. And while this plan is the boldest that SANDAG has proposed in decades, it is still highway oriented, and the plan as is will take too long for there to be enough changes in the public transportation system to be a competitive alternative to the private car industry, which is necessary to address our climate crisis. So inadequate investment in the mass transit system has harmed and continues to harm our most vulnerable communities' health and quality of life, which prompted the formation of the San Diego Transportation Equity Working Group, which I will refer to as the SDTEWG. So the SDTEWG is a coalition of the shown organizations who represent the priorities that frontline communities have identified, and they reflect a vision that will advance the best transit solutions for all San Diegans. So therefore, the SDTEWG, easy to say, is asking that the 10 transit lifelines be included in the 2021 regional plan, and for the following changes to be made. Again, you can take a picture of this QR code and it'll take you to a document that will explain more of what I'm breaking down. But the changes that we're asking for have been consolidated into these 6 asks. So we are asking SANDAG to meet the required greenhouse gas emission targets and to ensure that those measures are actually getting us to those goals by using the federal and state funding that is available to create, again, high quality union jobs. Our second ask is for SANDAG to accelerate the timeline for all of their transit. So that includes trolleys, buses, and rail, and biking infrastructure improvements, and to prioritize our environmental justice communities that need the transit solutions the most. So this specifically means no new roads and accelerating the Purple Line and collaborating with MTS to make improvements on the Blue Line, and both of those serve these communities. Currently, the plan is just not, it's very vague, and the timeline is not fast enough, right, as they mentioned earlier. Our third ask is for SANDAG to develop a transit system that's fast, frequent, reliable, and accessible by increasing our passenger capacity and the frequency on our most popular lines. So this means our goal is 24-hour service with 10-minute frequencies on our most popular lines. And this should be done immediately to introduce the public to a new transit era by providing MTS and NCTD with the necessary financial support for its implementation. Our fourth ask is for SANDAG to create and fund an anti-displacement strategy to protect our vulnerable communities that are living near the transit corridors. And they'll do this by preserving the existing affordable housing, developing new affordable housing, encouraging community ownership, and protecting current tenant rights. Our fifth ask is for SANDAG to provide immediate improvements for our current amenities surrounding transits for transit sites. So amenities would include benches, shade from the elements, and bathrooms, which should all be accessible according to ADA regulations. So these would be our bus stops, which most do not have any amenities at all. And our last ask is for SANDAG to provide a no-cost transit pass for any youth 24 years or younger. And we are asking them to accelerate this timeline. Instead of the 2027 deadline, we are saying this needs to be accomplished by 2023. And the no-cost transit passes are to encourage significant participation in public transportation and help shift the expectations for how San Diegans use transit. And this has already been identified as a priority for youth, especially in our frontline communities, which has been proven. Like Mid-City CAN is focusing a lot of their work on this as well. So this is a really important issue across the board. And you can support these changes by submitting a public comment to SANDAG, and they have extended the timeline to August 6th. So you can Again, follow this QR code. And it will take you to the public comment website. And I urge you to use and include your own personal stories with San Diego Transit. So if you are a transit user, what difficulties do you face? You know, like the lack of amenities or our wait times. And if you don't use public transportation, you know, why not? You know, what is limiting you or restricting you from using public transportation? Those stories are what will really matter the most and really has the most impact. But we would love for you to start with those and for those to be your focal point. But we have created a toolkit that will go over those 6 talking points as well. So we would encourage you to use 2 to 3 and include those in your comments. Like Nicole commented in the chat, you'll have access to all of these. So if you didn't, you know, get one scanned or it didn't work, don't worry, you'll get all of the links to these as well. And again, that timeline is the 6th. So it's important that we get this done ASAP. And lastly, we urge you to get involved with other transportation justice groups. So SD350's Transportation Committee meets monthly. Their event page is on the left. And SANDAG's Social Equity Working Group, they meet every month, and so does the San Diego Transportation Working Equity Group. And you can find SANDAG's event page on the right. Again, if you don't have access to these, that's fine, though those links will be provided later. But we just really urge everybody to be involved in transportation justice, and I really appreciate your guys' time. Is there any questions? I'm not sure how I'm doing on time, but if you have any questions, I'm happy to stay afterwards and answer specifics, or you can reach out to me and I'll put my contact info, make sure that everybody has that as well.
Oh my gosh, Savannah, that was a phenomenal presentation. Another wonderful presentation. Thank you so, so much. I so appreciate you and really all of the volunteers on the call tonight. You are all doing incredible work, and I am so excited to be a part of this work. I don't know about you folks, but are you pumped? If you're not pumped, get pumped. We got a lot of great work that we can show up in San Diego. So I'm excited to show up for my community. I saw that Maria's hand was raised, and Maria had a question I think they posted in the chat. So we can go ahead and address that right now before moving on.
Oh, on the toolkit, it says you can share with others using the social media, but there was no sample. So do you have anything we could share or read?
Yeah, absolutely. I can include those in like the links that Nicole can share with you guys as well. And I think Katie will probably be replying in the chat box too. But yay, I'm psychic. But yeah, so you can share the petition there that Katie added in the chat. And I'll include, we have a few graphics that we can include as well. But if you have any specifics, reach out to me and I'm happy to help you, make anything like that too. If you have anything specifically that you have in mind, like Instagram, Twitter, just reach out and we are happy to work with you.
Thank you.
Great question, Maria, and thank you so much, Savannah, for providing that resource for folks. I am so inspired by all of your great work. Thank you for everything that you do. We are going to get going and sort of shift to the next piece. Again, all of our speakers are wonderful, and I'm actually going to reintroduce Maria to all of you, but in a different capacity. And so Maria and Susan are our incredible co-leaders of the JEDI team, and they're here to give us a nice announcement, about the team and the important work they're doing. So I'm gonna let y'all hop on and give us those great words of wisdom.
Okay, I'm gonna start. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So the JEDI team is Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. We started forming this team just about a year ago. So most of us have not actually met each other. The reason we started it is that San Diego 350 really wanted to be more intentional about the need for racial justice in combating the climate crisis. And so our goals, we had basically 4 main goals once we thought this through. Educate and provide information internally to SD350 members. Have equitable internal policies, practices, and norms within the organization. Bring the racial justice perspectives and ideas into San Diego 350 planning and work. For instance, in building electrification, I know there is an equity group working on, which communities will not be able to afford to, or are in rental units and can't participate in this healthy switch. That's just an example. And then the 4th one is connect to and partner with racial justice and anti-racism organizations locally and really do some anti-racism work in San Diego. So we got a lot done in this first year, I think, besides creating a brand new team. We provided 3 anti-racism trainings for SD350 leadership, and we have also set up a resource list with a lot of links to resources that is available to anybody in SD350, and I will put that link in the chat in a moment while Maria's talking. We also updated the SD350 racial equity filter, which is used for evaluating and shaping policies and projects and make major decisions. And we've worked with a couple of other teams on some of those policies. And we've gotten involved, some of us personally, in some community anti-racism efforts, including the Community Budget Alliance that CPI runs, that is trying to make sure that the San Diego City budget is equitable. And the San Diegans for Justice effort to get a really effective commission on police practices, which is what we all voted for in Measure B last year, but is taking forever and is people are trying to water it down. So we're working on that. And we've also assisted Alliance San Diego in some getting some survival grants to immigrants who weren't eligible for the federal checks. So that's some of the things we've been doing in the community. We've also, we are setting up a JEDI action database where people will be able to go and look for, here's a petition you can sign. That's not quite ready to share yet, I don't think, but watch for that. Petitions, but also like local rallies or whatever. We have done some rapid response to that kind of thing, like the anti-Asian hate crimes, and we were making phone calls and sending out things to do about that. And we started a JEDI book club. The next meeting, I will have to find the link to, and I put it in there. And we've even had a couple of JEDI team online game nights. So I think we've had a great first year, and Maria is now going to tell you about going forward and how you can join us.
So join us. Join us by joining us. No, really, Susan and I just got like what, 1 or 2 weeks as co-leads. Rachel was, leading the group, but because she has to have other priorities, we kind of stepped up. And our mission is to really just enrich San Diego 350 with the many colors and flavors and backgrounds and that San Diego really has to offer. So, I think San Diego 350, as I don't have to tell any of you, is a really important group in San Diego, and really the only one in some instances when it comes to representing communities and their climate change interest and their future. And so we really just want to take 1 year of being co-leads maximum, because our mission really is to sort of hand the baton to fresh voices and to have them and to be open to really all ideas that, you know, that they may want, like initiatives that they may want to pursue. So if you or anyone, you know, is really interested in social justice and racial justice, but is not really versed, or perhaps hasn't ever tried to join in a climate change organization, you know, you please send them our way. And if you would like to hear more about how those two things are in the same ecosystem and how they relate to each other, and how yeah, and how justice can be done, both environmental justice and racial justice, please, you know, join one of our sessions, or you join one of our emails, so that you are aware of the actions that are going on around town. Again, I think that this work really just enriches the group, and I'm really, really excited about all the things that we're doing and the things that we're going to do. I am also part of the San Diego Green New Deal. I don't know if I saw Adam here at one point. He's part of the UCSD Green New Deal, but I am very, I think this type of work is really where we all get that public voice, and that those numbers that we really need to make change, to make sure that nobody's really left out of the new world that we're trying to create. So thank you guys for listening, and I think Susan has the links in the chat, but I'm gonna just put my personal email if anybody wants to hear more. And thank you.
Thank you so much, Maria and Susan. Your work is incredibly important and you're doing amazing things. And I will reiterate that if any of you want to get connected with any or all of our wonderful speakers tonight, a follow-up email will be going out to everyone who registered for the event, including the recording of this event and all of the great resources and questions that were addressed in the chat. So be on the lookout for that. The email will go out in a couple of days. So we'll definitely connect you and make sure you have the resources you need. And again, thank you so much to the JEDI team. You're doing incredible work. I'm so excited to be able to, you know, hear the great things that are happening and will continue to happen. All right. So we, like I said, I wasn't fibbing. We got a jam-packed evening. We're almost done. We've got some great questions that we're hopefully going to get to. But before we wrap up and sort of pivot back to those questions, I'm really excited to spotlight our volunteer of the month. Steve, you can decide to speak if you want. You don't have to, but I am going to spotlight you. We've got a ton of amazing volunteers in this organization, and so I wish we could highlight all of them all at once, but right now Steve is being highlighted for their incredible work. So a few things about Steve really quickly, and then if you want to unmute yourself to just share a thing or two, Steve, we'd be happy to hear you.
Okay.
If you want to speak now, please go ahead.
Let's just get it over with, okay? Yeah, I'm delighted to get this attention, but of course I'm aware that anybody else in the room could also get this attention because the volunteers are so amazing. Just briefly about me, I'm a fanatical bicycle rider. Bicycles for transportation is really important to me. I'm on the Transportation Committee, the Quality of Life team, and the San Diego Transportation Equity Working Group. And I love the work that Savannah's doing and that Katie's doing. They're both so incredible. And I love Nicole's energy, and that's it for me.
Well, thank you so much, Steve. We so appreciate your passion for cycling and transportation. So again, to reiterate, if you're interested in joining the committee, there are a lot of opportunities. I know that there's a biking event happening on August 1st. So I'll include that information in the follow-up email as well. So if you're interested in biking to celebrate those safe bike lanes on, I believe, 30th Street, please sign up and join along with us. All right, so really briefly, I want to take some time now to share some Pride resources. Again, all of these resources are going to be available in the follow-up. We did also highlight this information in our newsletter that went out last week. So if you're on the newsletter list, you probably got this information. And we really want to spotlight Mel Valoria. They are a co-lead of the fundraising team and a member of the Jedi team. And they also work at San Diego Pride. And they gave us some really great information. So I'm going to share that really quickly here. And again, you don't need to memorize everything I'm going to say because I'll share it with you in the follow-up email. So in case you didn't know, July is Pride Month in San Diego, a very important thing to celebrate. San Diego Pride specifically is best known for the San Diego Pride Parade and Festival. It's the largest civic event in San Diego and also operates as a year-round education and advocacy organization, providing over 30 programs such as Youth Leadership Academy, She Fest, Transgender Day of Empowerment, and Latinx coalitions, Art of Pride, Dev Out, and more. Wow, that's so wonderful. In addition to those annual festivities, San Diego Pride has donated over $3 million to LGBTQ serving nonprofits through our Pride community grants, making us one of the most philanthropic Pride organizations in the world. That is amazing. If any of you are interested in learning more about their 2020 highlights, I will share that in the follow-up email. And also, if you're looking to be a volunteer, there are ways to sign up with the organization as well. So that's just a little highlight of those great resources, and more information will be provided to you. And finally, we've got a ton of great events happening. I will I think, insert the link to our upcoming events page. There are a ton there. We're very busy right now, which is exciting. But the one that I want to specifically highlight is happening this Thursday. It is our inaugural San Diego 350 Action Hour. And this is going to be a space where we hope folks specifically, I think it'll be policy oriented, but not always, but we welcome folks to, in real time, do organizing and action items that will help our community. So this Thursday, I believe Katie will be facilitating that event, and we're going to be getting as many people to comment on the RTP within that action hour as possible. So it's a fun sort of social way to get involved and also, you know, act and you know, provide support. So again, we hope you had a wonderful evening. I will stop here because I know we're at 29, and I will maybe pass it back to I think Robert and maybe Jeannie, if Jeannie's still on the call, and then Savannah. I think there was even a question for you, and if you can't stay, maybe Katie can stay on in your behalf. So I'll just mute myself because no one wants to hear me talk anymore.
And I'm still on the call.
Yeah, me too.
I can read off the questions that we have in the chat here. So the first question we got a little while back was, is there an increase of home value when a house becomes all electric?
I would think so. I don't have any data to support it, but I would think so, just because, I mean, you probably have solar, you probably have the most up-to-date technology. If people, I think the more and more of the population is going to want to have all electric homes, or, you know, basically reduce their footprints in the home they buy. We're definitely in the business sector. You're seeing that in real estate. A lot of people who are wanting to take leases on business properties want these buildings to be sustainable and basically have all these updates out there. So I mean, again, I don't have the evidence for it, but my thought is it probably is true.
Yeah, and I would think as if I were selling my home, that someone would want to know that they don't have to go through and do all these retrofits sometime in the future. So if it was already done. Mhm.
Great, thank you, Robert and Jeannie. And that was a question from Mark. Maria asked if the cost of retrofit gets passed on to renters.
I mean, probably. I mean, it's like any other improvement a renter makes. I mean, like, so usually that happens between renters. So like if you're going to go and add new carpet or stuff, that's going to be done before the current renter shows up, and probably, part of their rent as they come in there. Say if you've been renting for a long time and your heat pump goes out, or the heat water goes out and replaced with a heat pump, they shouldn't transfer it over to you because that's the cost they incur as an owner. So I would definitely keep your eyes on that. But unfortunately, that's probably some of that going on, which is just the way things work.
And I just learned about an organization called SOMA. I put it in the chat. That's for solar on multifamily affordable housing. So landlords who would like to do put solar on their things, and then that cost does not go to the renters, because there's $10 billion available for landlords to do that.
Yeah, that sounds like an incredible resource, SOMA.
Mhm.
All right, from Kathy to Robert, Jeannie, and Savannah, do you think we need a SDTEC, San Diego Transportation Electrification Council, too? I think we do, Kathy says.
Make the coaster all electric. I can't believe it hasn't been done yet. I mean, it's basically, you've all been to Europe and see all their trains are all electrified. There's no emissions associated with. There's no NOx and SOx, all those nitrous oxides and just all that crap that comes out of the exhaust of the trains that we have now. So
Yeah,
I'm all for it.
yes. So much of that stuff has already been done in Europe, so it's not like the technology isn't there. We just have to.
Our trolley is electric.
And our politics has stopped a lot of this.
Mark asks, is car sharing part of the plan, especially if the cars are electric? That might be a Savannah question.
Yes, they are. And if you have specifics on that, I will also include that in the resources that are sent out by Nicole, because the regional plan is over 4,000 pages long. So I do not remember the specific appendix that is in, because we have appendices from A to Z. So I will get you specifics, but yes, they are promoting ride sharing and every little thing in between. That's part of the 5 big move things, right? And Katie can explain more too if she needs.
And Alyssa, can I add that if for people who aren't here tonight, if you want to tell them, there is an article on building electrification in this month's newsletter for SD 350.
Perfect. Jill asks, will old appliances replaced be required to be recycled or end up in a landfill? With California's 40 million population, this could have a significant adverse effect on the landfills, or if sold offshore, just increase emissions in other countries.
Right, that's a really huge thing to consider, because there will be a lot of volume. Right now, electronics you're not supposed to throw them into landfill. I think there's a lot of things you're not supposed to throw in landfill. So I think there's already programs that do that. I think, how they get recycled and where they go, that's kind of a bit of a black box. I think there should be a lot of work done to basically kind of preempt that need and be able to use the resources, the metals, all the electronics that are in those things for some other need. We have to make that instead of being a linear cycle for basically production to waste, make it circular so that every piece of that that appliance can be reused for something else. And if we don't do that, we're going to have a serious problem. You're right.
And actually, I'll just comment here too in my small group. I think it was Susan was commenting that she was planning to like maybe put her old gas oven and stove in her yard and turn it into a cool plant installation. So yeah, people can get creative too. There's all sorts of different ways you could end up using your old electronics.
Yeah,
But
we
that's
could-
all the questions we have in the chat.